Come closer to my light for a moment. I am Candela, and this small flame that holds me has been lit for centuries to tell one single thing, that the human soul, no matter how deep it falls, always finds its way back to the light. Today I bring you the oldest love story ever written. There was once a love so fragile it could only exist in the dark, a love that would die the very moment it was seen. In a kingdom by the sea lived a king with 3 daughters, and the youngest was named Psyche. Her beauty was of a kind that language cannot hold. Travelers crossed the water only to look at her, and people scattered flowers at her feet as though she were a goddess walking among mortals. And that was the problem. They began to whisper that Venus herself had been born a second time, in mortal flesh. The altars of the goddess of love grew cold, her temples silent. High above, a cold fury took hold of her, that a girl who would die should wear her glory was an insult she could not forgive. She called her son, Eros, and commanded him to strike Psyche with desire for the most wretched creature on earth. But down below, something strange was happening. Everyone admired her, no one asked for her hand. In despair, her father consulted the oracle of Apollo, and the answer came like a sentence of death: no human husband awaited her. She was to be dressed as a bride, led to the top of a lonely crag, and abandoned there, given to a winged and fearsome evil. And so the most beautiful girl in the world was prepared for the strangest ceremony ever seen, a wedding that was, in every detail, a funeral. They left her weeping on the summit, expecting horror. And instead came tenderness. A soft west wind, Zephyr, gathered her by the folds of her gown and set her down, unharmed, in a secret valley, before a palace that no mortal hands had built. Voices without bodies dressed her and served her, everything she could desire was hers. And yet, in all that splendor, she was utterly alone. Her husband came only at night. In total darkness she heard his voice, felt his warmth, and though she never saw him, she came to love him with all her heart. But he set one condition upon their happiness: she must never try to see his face, never bring a light into the chamber. If she looked upon him, she would lose him forever. And he warned her, again and again, against her sisters. Do not answer them, he begged. They are not sisters now. They are wolves. Between shadow and flesh, fascinated the great painters. Jacques-Louis David painted it in 1817, the god of love and the mortal, so close and so apart, joined by a desire that does not yet dare to look itself in the face. But solitude is patient, and love made Psyche bold. She begged until Zephyr brought her sisters to visit. It was a mistake that would cost her everything. Seeing the gold, the jewels, the winds that obeyed a word, envy rose in them like black water. And they drove in their weapon. They swore that her husband was a monster, a serpent fattening her with tenderness only to devour her, and the child she already carried within. That night, half mad with fear, Psyche hid a knife and a lamp. And when her husband's breathing sank into sleep, she raised the lamp over the thing she had been forbidden to see. There was no monster. There slept the most beautiful of all beings, the god of love himself, his golden hair, his white wings folded. In that trembling instant, a drop of burning oil fell upon his shoulder. He woke, looked at her once, and without anger, only a wound too deep, he rose into the air. Love does not live where there is no trust, he told her. And he vanished. François Girard froze that first forbidden touch in 1798, the kiss of Cupid settling upon a Psyche who still cannot see him. The very light seems to hold its breath. What followed was the long, dark middle of the story. Psyche did not die of grief, though she tried. She wandered the world searching for the husband she had lost. And her sisters, blind with the same greed, she led to the crag with a lie. Each threw herself joyfully into the empty air, calling on the wind to catch her. But this time no wind came. It was their own envy that threw them from the height of their ambition. Above, Venus had learned everything. She locked away the wounded god and set out to hunt the girl herself. And Psyche, with nowhere left to run, did the bravest thing of all. She walked into the house of the goddess who wanted her dead, and offered herself as a servant. So the trials began. First, a mountain of mixed seed to be sorted before nightfall. It was impossible. But the smallest creature of the field took pity on her. A single ant called up its whole nation, and like a tide they divided every grain into its kind. Crueler trials came. The golden wool of savage rams, which she gathered patiently from the thorns, never facing them. And then the black, freezing water of the spring of the Styx, on the summit of a peak guarded by dragons that never closed their eyes. There the eagle of Jupiter himself swept down, repaying an old debt to love, It took the jar in its talons, slipped between the dragon's jaws, and filled it from the forbidden water. Then came the last trial, the darkest of all. To go down into the underworld, among the dead, and ask Proserpina for a portion of her beauty, sealed in a box. A tower taught her how to do it and live. 2 coins for the ferryman Charon, 2 barley cakes to quiet the 3 jaws of Cerberus. And on the road, pity itself laid as a trap. She had to harden her heart and refuse everyone, for a single hand open to help would leave her trapped forever in the dark. Psyche obeyed every word. She paid the ferryman, quieted the terrible hound, passed by the outstretched hands of the suffering. She took the sealed box and climbed back toward the sun. And there, so close to safety, the same flaw that had cost her love rose in her again. Surely there is a little divine beauty in here, she thought, and she lifted the lid. But inside there was no beauty. There was a deep, infernal sleep that poured out like a mist and closed over her, like a dead thing upon the road. The pre-Raphaelite John William Waterhouse painted that fatal instant in 1903, Psyche opening the golden box, the gesture of curiosity winning just as the goal was within reach of her hand. And then the god she had wounded came back for her. His shoulder healed, unable to bear her absence, Eros flew to where she lay, wiped the sleep from her body, and woke her with the lightest touch of one of his arrows. For this is what the ancients understood: Psyche is the Greek word for the soul, and she is drawn with the wings of a butterfly because the soul, too, longs to rise. Eros is not only desire, he is the one who leads the soul through the dark, a torch in his hand, the bringer of light. Antonio Canova carved that awakening in marble between 1787 and 93. Love lifts the sleeping soul in an embrace that seems about to breathe. Psyche's face, as she woke, was more beautiful than ever, not the smooth beauty of the girl on the crag, but a beauty filled with all she had suffered. One power alone could end the war between the goddess and the girl, and Eros flew to him, Jupiter, the father of the gods. He called all of heaven into council and gave his ruling. To make the marriage lawful, Psyche would no longer be mortal. He lifted the cup of the immortals to her lips and spoke the words that changed everything: "Take this, Psyche, and be a goddess." And in that instant her age was fixed forever, she would never grow old, and love would never leave her side. William Bouguereau painted, in 1895, that flight of the soul toward heaven, carried off by love, the abduction of Psyche, light now as her own wings. Heaven held a wedding feast. Psyche sat in the arms of Eros while Apollo played and the muses sang, and Venus herself, reconciled at last, rose and danced for pure joy. In time, from that union, a daughter was born, and they named her Pleasure. For this is the promise hidden in the oldest love story of all, that the soul which dares to look, and loses everything, and walks through the dark to win it back, does not merely survive. It becomes light. And its child is joy. My flame is going out now, but not the light of this story. Remember, as you slip away in silence, that your soul too, however far it falls, carries wings within, waiting for the moment to rise. And if this small light has kept you company, do not let it go out. Subscribe, and I will light it again to tell you the next of the ancient stories.